hin und es ging bei ihr auch immer wieder auch um Identität, weil sie ist das zweite Kind in China groß geworden, in einer Ein-Kind-Policy und hat einen anderen Namen dann bekommen und gar nicht ihren eigenen Familiennamen. Und das hat immer mit betrieben, auch mit Identität. Und das Zweite ist, wo Tamara aus Georgien mitkommt, und da waren ja immer die Demonstrationen, auch nach den Wahlen, pro Europa, pro Russland. Und Tamara war dann raus im Dezember und sagte, ich muss raus hier, ich muss meinen Sohn rausbringen, weil sonst wird er arrested, er ist jeden Tag in der Demonstration. Und dann kam sie hier nach Berlin und konnte sie im Artist-Apartment unterbringen und da haben die beiden sich kennengelernt. Und hier ging es natürlich auch wieder um Identität. Einmal die Identität hier aus ihrer Sicht und dann die Identität auch aus Tamaras Sicht, auch was das heißt für ein Land. Und jetzt sitzen wir hier, und das ist unser neuer Zugang in der Galerie auch mit, wir sind wieder sehr, sehr froh. Es war ein Sammlerfreund, hat Simin Jalilian uns mit vorgestellt in Hamburg. Simin haben wir zum ersten Mal auch in ihrem Atelier besucht. Sie war dort auch in der Ausstellung in der Dix und die Gegenwart hat sie mitgemacht. Und war dann auch in der Zeit am Studieren mit gewesen in der Hochschule in Hamburg und hat jetzt im März kürzlich was wie ein Master gemacht. Und hier sehen Sie auch in der Ausstellung ihre Masterarbeit, wo sie summa cum laude auch die Benotung bekommen hat. Und sie war eine Schülerin von Werner Hübner und hat jetzt das Studium abgeschlossen. Und da geht es aber auch wieder, Simin kommt herkömmlich aus Iran und hat Iran verlassen, auch wiederum, weil sie in Iran nicht mehr arbeiten konnte. Weil dort hat sie schon das Studium mit absolviert und hat es ausgestellt und dort ist sie auch, die Bilder sind halt von der Zivilpolizei auch wieder abgetragen worden, weil sie kann nicht figurativ, sie kann keine Frauen malen. Und dann hat sie sich auf den Weg gemacht nach Deutschland und hat dann wieder ihr Studium komplett angefangen. Und hier wieder über ihren Bachelor bis zum Master hat sie 7 Jahre hier studiert und hat jetzt kürzlich ihren Abschluss mitgemacht. Auch da geht es wieder, wer bin ich? Und sie nehmen Themen auch mit auf, sehr politische Themen, aktuelle Themen, die sie in der Kunst, in der Malerei darstellt. Und dann wieder zurückzukommen zu Tereza. Und Tereza hat sich hier bereit erklärt, sie hat den Text auch für die Ausstellung von Tamara und sehr geschrieben. Sie war hier sehr behilflich, sie hat gesagt, das Thema hier an der Shadows greift sie. Und dann war aber die Idee gewesen, wenn wir hier samstags zusammenkommen, viel mehr raus aus der Ausstellung, sondern sie hat hier 3 Künstlerinnen, die hier in Berlin jetzt sitzen und vor uns. Und Tereza sagt, lass uns hier ins Gespräch mitkommen. Was heißt es hier, und auch Künstlerin zu sein? Und da bin ich ganz, ganz froh, Tereza, dass du jetzt hier den Talk mitleitest. Ich möchte dann nicht übergeben und möchte mich aber nochmal ganz herzlich für dein Engagement und deine Arbeit auch bedanken. Dankeschön. Wir gucken von der Sprache auch. Ich glaube, da draußen ein bisschen eine Offenheit, weil wir haben hier auch, Simin spricht nicht sehr gut Englisch und sie spricht aber dafür fließend Deutsch und natürlich auch Farsi. Und wir haben hier Xianxiang, sie ist Chinesisch und Englisch und wir haben Tamara im Englischen und Georgischen mit. Das heißt, wir werden hier irgendwie zusammenkommen und wir sind hier auch alle mit dabei und können auch mithelfen zu übersetzen. Vielen Dank. Danke.
Okay, so willkommen, welcome everybody. Actually, I will have to speak much more in English because of our guests and some of the questions, and Simin will make it in German. So it will be a mix. Well, we have an exhibition of the 3 artists happening right now in Berlin, and due to the engagement of the gallery, also invited the artists for us. And it is definitely very important to have their positions here, out of their personal history, and also related to the current day that we are living. We are not a very easy time. And the artists, what do they have to do? How they support us? They support us through their artwork. And these exhibitions, both of them at KORNFELD and 2068, they are open right now simultaneously in biennial, which has also a bright presentation of artists, 60 artists from 40 different countries, and also dealing a lot with political situation, but with the political situation, not just this narrative that we see on TV or newspaper, but showing the perspective of the artists, how they deal, how they find ways of surviving, and how they find ways of existing and keep on producing their works. So the three artists here coming from different countries, and thanks to the partnership, to different colleagues, I had the chance to get closer to them. Even Shunxiang Hu, we have this year one exhibition of her in Shanghai at the new gallery where Clemens Klaus also participated, and Tamara, I had the chance to re-meet her again last year when she was almost rescued from the gallery to be in Berlin during this period in December when the demonstrations were quite hard in Tehran. And then Simin, living here exactly since 7 years, and right now talking about Iran. Well, she left because of local circumstances and because she studied art there, but wanted to really be able to present her work, and not just to have someone deciding for her work. So she came to Germany and studied in Hamburg, and they just finished it since 7 years in Berlin. And then there are three women artists. They are dedicated also to painting or sometimes installations, especially objects like Tamara. Shunxiang also started this, but they have lots of things in common. And for instance, I prepared some questions to them because we were just trying to get a common sense, and for them it's okay, they have their works here. At one point it's also difficult for them to express themselves in languages, but I prepared some questions that I shared already with them, and then I will just make some round discussions, questions with short answers, and then we can open to the audience. So we are here in the exhibition of Simin, straight in front of her wall. And Simin, one of my questions to you is deine Bildungssprache entsprechend gelebter Erfahrung. Insbesondere deine Wege als in Iran geborene Künstlerin, die heute in Deutschland lebt. Wie verarbeitet deine künstlerische Praxis dieses Dazwischensein zwischen diesen beiden Kontexten, nicht nur geografisch, sondern auch emotionell, in deinem Malprozess zum Beispiel, in deinem Motiv?
Ja. Diese dazwischen zu sein, hat natürlich großen Einfluss auf mich und auf meine Arbeiten. Und ja, ich habe zwei verschiedene Kulturen so als Erlebnis in mir und auch in meiner Arbeit, in meinen Farbtönen, meinen Motiven. Ich arbeite auch von Iran, aber nicht nur von Iran, sondern so von Europa, was ich sehe, von der ganzen Welt. So.
Ja, das hat auch einen ganz starken autobiografischen Charakter, auch sozusagen. Von deinen Durchgang, von das, was du in den letzten Jahren sozusagen miterlebt hast. Das ist praktisch die Wiedergabe von ihrer Realität. Und dann noch in Bezug auf dieses Herkunft and from origin, I would like to ask you to Tamara. Tamara, your work, which is presented at the Gallery KORNFELD, often navigates the intersection between public and private space. She makes also usually huge monumental exhibitions for public space, especially this through movement, shadow, and also architectural interventions. How does your experience moving between Georgia, Berlin, and different cities where you have been working form the conceptual aspect of your work? And actually, we met many years ago when she was taking part in the Venice Biennial when we met again last December here. So how is it for you, coming from the organ and working in all these different places?
So it's a very complex question, so very shortly to give the answer coming from a small country like Georgia, which is actually a country almost that, and where the role of the woman, for example, in the 19th century was a very patriarchal place. And then it was they were allowed to, okay, they were allowed to vote, and then after the Soviet invasion, women started to to have an education and many things, but it was a regime there. So this is coming from this country, being a woman, and everything, traveling a lot during all my life. And these are the, like you keep in your mind, like an archive, you keep the codes of this, social codes, and which you transform. When you go to some places, you know, it's like you take something with you, maybe you don't know, and you leave something to the road too, and then you transform this, being traveling in different places. And then you get these echo forms, and which has some memories, you know, what you do. And going to kinetic, very shortly, if I can say something, these kinetic things, it's not like moving, I want to move a sculpture. This was never, I never wanted that. It is born in this way, you know, it's like, it has to be kinetic, which is coming with body from the Greek, you know, this thing you never go to twice, and everything is in movement. So that was the concept, the starting idea, which transforms with my life during my journey traveling.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. And Shunxiang, your painting, it carries the sensibility of someone connected to silence and to displacement. As someone who experienced a cultural rupture after arriving in Berlin, she was here in Berlin in a residence program last year, November, December. It was the first time that she was working abroad. And then she came into this deep, dark Berlin winter. So, for you, how is this moment of arrival and also of this location, because she's based in Chengdu, this transition from Chengdu to Berlin, how did it influence your visual approach to Berlin? And the works that we see in the gallery, the KORNFELD, they were produced in Berlin during her stay, and some of them she just realized after that experience. So how was it for you, leaving Chengdu, arriving in Berlin for the first time, being alone by yourself in another city?
Okay, well, thanks very much for your sensitivity to my works. The last year when I was in Berlin, Tereza took care of me a lot. I need to thanks to you in the public place. First of all, I really want to thank the KORNFELD Galerie and the 16 projects inviting me. I also need to thank the Leo Gallery, my China gallery, introduced me to this great gallery. Actually, this was my first artist residency in abroad, so it's a very precious chance for me. I had more time to think about some big things I never thought of. When I was in Berlin, you said the last year's winter, I arrived Berlin, so maybe I felt, at the beginning, I felt very lonely. But then I think maybe in winter you can see more things you never thought of. Yeah, and I'm so honored to have that exhibition with Tamara. Because before I arrived Berlin, I knew you. Yeah, I knew you are very popular in China. Yeah, we also have a chance to live together around 10 days. We talked a lot, not just about some small things, or about political problems, government or other things very deeply. So I think it's also very important for me. In Berlin, I felt another thing is very important for me, more freedom, maybe. The freedom without an identity. I'm not someone's second church, I'm not someone's wife. Sorry, my husband is there. Yeah. Yeah, I felt I just had to be myself. The paintings at KORNFELD Gallery for me, I think they are not just all paintings. They more like a short life diary. Yeah, they are emotional snapshots for me. After the artist residency, I created 3 new series about my boarding life. Tereza is my curator at KORNFELD Gallery. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really important to have these 3 artists here, as I already said, and to have this platform to show their work, and we see how important Berlin is for them. And also, despite of the fact of being women artists and being painters, the representation of the body is something very in common between their works. Not just coming now, but it's part of their artistic also language and also development. And then I will start my second round of questions related much more about this representation of the body in their works. So you again, Simin, deine Figuren, wie wir hier sehen in dieser Ausstellung, weil wir das Beispiel hier starten in ihrer Ausstellung, erscheinen oft ineinander verschlungen. Ihre Konturen, die verschmelzen mit der Darstellung von Landschaften, urbanen Kontexten und dazu beladen mit Gefühlen der Protagonisten, zum Teil autobiografische Darstellungen. Würdest du sagen, dass der Körper in deiner Arbeit eher als Träger von Identität erscheint oder vielmehr als ein Ort, ein Vermittler, an dem Identität in Frage gestellt wird oder vielleicht sogar mitgetragen wird?
Ich denke, beides. Ich meine, ja, die Körper zeigen, wer man ist, durch Verhalten, durch Ausdrücke oder Verletzlichkeiten. Aber kann auch ein Ort sein, an dem man verlieren kann, so durch gesellschaftliche Druck. So. Ich meine, beides.
Ja, genau, und vielleicht deswegen ist auch wichtig, das immer wieder zu betonen, diese Darstellung, dass die Menschen noch da sind. Ja. Trotz dieser Druck, dass die mitspüren, oder diese Tendenzen, dass die zum Teil einige ausradiert werden oder keine Sichtbarkeit bekommen. Ja. Und vielleicht, das ist für dich auch diese Darstellung von Körper auch sehr stark. Ja. And then Tamara, you were already talking a bit about your kinetic installations and your objects because they are much related to figurative bodies. No? And you frequently fragment the human form. It's usually represented in different places, often reducing it to outlines, silhouettes, or symbolic gestures. How does this formal strategy of incompletation, the body is not complete itself, related to your broader interest in memory or emotional representation of human beings?
It's always emotional. It's always emotional, and it's sometimes it happens that I say I want to paint something and I end up painting body. It comes, plus it comes itself. But I've been thinking myself, why was they in my sculpture it was so important? Maybe because in Christian Orthodox countries you were allowed only to have bas-reliefs, and you didn't have a 3D form. Maybe, I don't know, this is unconscious thing, which I'm starting a bit. Sometimes it's not the body, it's like only just the code of the body.
For a figure.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's mostly can be something different. And as a kinetic thing, for me, it was very important. First of all, the movement is very important in everything what we do. And the way we live. And in this culture, if we take a child, they always stop when something is playing or something is moving. So it catches the eye, but the movement has to be right. That's what I say. I never wanted to move a sculpture. It is born moving. It is born in this way, to have this cycle of starting and finishing. And when, yes, we had a cycle, when it finishes and then it goes back and it starts. And when it goes in a circle, like we have rotation or man and woman, then it starts to be interesting. Then you can sit and you can go somewhere. And it's not a body, it can be the...
Yes, and even very interesting for a three-dimensional object, we have it in different movements, so that for the audience to visualize it from different perspectives, staying at the same point. It's different than this classical presentation of a sculpture, because usually you have a sculpture and the audience, the visitors walk around, and then in her way, she's offering us all complete. You just stay there and see it from every side. It's a dynamic in a very progressive way.
There is a certain thing, when you can sit and you can watch, and sometimes you can sit and look at something for quite a long time, And I always say, I always think artist has his own approach to everything what we do, but the viewer can have a different feeling. But if there is something strong inside, I think it will have a fluid. But they can be understanding a little bit. I always love to listen, what people think about, especially when they're interesting. You can have your own codes, which comes from your own life, which comes from your own childhood and your own thing. But for somebody coming from a different culture, it can have a different meaning. And this makes it interesting. For example, like Xianxian was that was really very interesting because, yes, we were only 10 days together, but we spoke a lot the way we could, and then when we saw each other's work, there was kind of this connection which was strange to see these faces, what she makes, that she calls the snapshots. When we did this migration, it fitted for us, both of us, so well, because it brought one piece. So and it's very good because two different artists living in different countries, having different age, and doing different things can have something in common. That is, I think, quite important.
Yeah, and that's how the exhibition at project at the KORNFELD Gallery started. After this residence between both of them, this internship, and also Shunxiang, she makes the representation also of the human body. Most of them is really autobiographic. If you see the paintings, most of them are small size, very sensitive, and you have this feeling of vulnerability. And some of them you see they are men representation plans, and some of them are female, and they are faceless. You do not have the details of the face. And she was just telling us, in my previous question, about this biography, existence being a second child in China, while they had the one-child politique. So actually, she should not exist. But it would be very, very bad. So through her work, it would be terrible. So through her work, it's a way of emphasizing much more her existence. And her paintings, they are very, very sensitive. And this faceless, they are very emotional, and they are very introspective. And I'm very happy that she's here with us, and also for her, even in the English language, next time we speak Chinese, I promise. And then she's expressing herself and telling us, as she probably never did before. Since arriving in Berlin, and you told that you have been feeling free, and even the works that she's presenting here, she painted them in Berlin during that residence program, so the winter time was very good because she was in the studio working very hard. Yeah. So what about your paintings then, again, all being a very strong autobiographic character or the environment?
Yeah. First of all, I want to explain one thing. One child, the program ended several years ago. So there is no this program in China now.
Yeah.
And actually, I blurred the figures in my works on purpose blurred. I really don't think everything has to be shown very clearly in my works. Yeah. When the artists see my works, I think if the figures are not very clearly, maybe they can think themselves in my work. Yeah, so I can stand behind my work and give the power to the people who see my works. Yeah, I think it's a way
To create a connection.
Yes.
To create a connection. Yes. In a very, very sensitive way and very, very emotional way. So the ones who have been at the KORNFELD Galerie, which would go there and pay attention of the paintings again. Yes. And all of them, the small ones we will produce in Berlin, which one did you produce back in Chengdu? Is there the ones that you are presenting in the gallery now? They were all made in Berlin?
You said all of the work.
Yes.
Yeah, the last one inside the gallery, inside of the gallery, you can see the big side.
Yeah.
Actually, I finished this work in Chengdu. Yeah. Except this one are the other paintings. I created them during my artist residency in last year.
Yeah. And the exhibition we had at the beginning of the year in Shanghai marked a new gallery. She presented there again in dialogue also with Kenneth Krauss, and we had also one other artist. It was about the representation of the body, but not the face, the portrait, but not just the body, but also the feeling. And it was also the result. She made all new works for us. She was working very hard, and they were all related still to this one experience of being here in Berlin and going back to her studio and how to digest this one feeling.
Yeah, they like two sides of the same coin.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
they was very cool.
yes. So and that's good that she came back and now has an exhibition here. And then I will just start my third round of questions, not so much as this part, but then we will also open for some questions. But the production of them is all related to the political situations, not just right now, but since the last years in Europe, in Asia, or globally, like this. And then, so the politics spielt eine sehr wichtige Rolle. Und jetzt noch mehr als denn sonst. Und Simin, meine Frage an dich. In deiner Arbeit, das auch hier in der Ausstellung ist, bitte nicht abschieben. Setzt du dich mit der bürokratischen Gewalt von Abschiebung auseinander? Durch eine emotional aufgeladene Figuration. Wie bewegst du dich in deiner Malerei zwischen den poetischen Darstellungen und dem politischen Kontext?
Ich fange immer emotional an, meine Motiven und so aus dem Kopf. So, aber ich finde meine Bilder nicht poetisch, so, die sind direkt so. Auch ich nehme immer meistens
existierende Muster. Sie malt alles aus dem Gedächtnis. Aber sozusagen der Gedächtnis speichert das für Informationen, Emotionen und alles. Und sie macht gar keine Skizze. Na, dann sehen wir hier die super figurative Arbeit. Das hat einen Anfang und dann zieht sie das durch. So alles aus dem Gedächtnis. Das kannst du mehr ein bisschen über deine Maltätigkeit oder wie du die Bilder konzipierst erzählen.
Ja, bei Thema, vielleicht, ich denke, erstmal ich sitze vor diesem Leinwand und ich gucke und fange an mit so bei größeren Bild, mit ziemlich größeren Pinsel, fange an und dann ich gehe weiter. Ich mag nicht Fotos arbeiten, finde ich langweilig so. Ich möchte so durch den Prozess weitergehen. So.
Aber hast du das damit angefangen hier, weil sie hat auch Malerei studiert in Teheran?
Ja.
Oder war das von Anfang an so? dieses Arbeitsverfahren mit
Nee,
dir?
ich habe in Teheran so viel Zeichen gemacht, so, anders, so anders. Und deswegen, das bleibt in meinem Kopf, wie ich jetzt malen kann, so figurativ, so. Das habe ich als Basis
Gelernt, so ganz gut. Mhm. Ja. Und zu deiner Farbepalette. Du hast was mitgebracht, zum Beispiel, das ist nicht nur so die Erinnerung von bestimmten Szenen oder Gestaltung, auch von bestimmten Situationen und auch von bestimmten Orten. Dann erzähl uns ein bisschen von dieser Farbepalette, die du aus Iran mitgenommen hast, zum Beispiel. Wir haben ein Beispiel dort auch. Diese Pastellfarben.
Viele von Bildern so haben diese ähnliche Farbpalette wie bei mir in meinem Heimatland, was ich viel gesehen habe. Viel so eine warme Töne, so warme Töne bei Landschaften auch. So. Das hatte auch Einfluss.
Ja, und das bleibt, ne? Sozusagen.
Ja. Bei
allen, aber bei einigen. Ja, bei dem Malprozess, dann entscheidest du dich für sie. Ne? Und wir sind noch bei den politischen Themen oder diesem Background in their works. And when I was invited to write a text between the work of Tamara and Shunxiang, and then I said, okay, I will call this Under Shadows, because it's a situation right now living under shadows. But shadow is also a very relevant element in the work of Tamara that she's been dealing with since many years. And the shadow could be the representation of different things, of different situations, could be a place where you would hide, not to be seen, or it could also represent something very dangerous, shadow and blood, something like this. But you have the shadow in your work since decades. How did you decipher it?
It depends. As you mentioned, it's a very deep thing, the shadow. It's a lot written about the shadow, and it is very interesting. And me too. I've been using the shadow in a different aspects, as you mentioned. For example, I have a chandelier where it is very poetic, and the shadow gives you a completely different feeling. But the most interesting for me was to find out that in a sculpture where I work with the shadow, it has a big transformation. In painting, it comes completely in a different way. And when you use a shadow as a shadow is one thing, and when you use a shadow in a sculpture, which is an echo and a memory, and which changes completely, you can give the colors to the shadow and make it completely colorful. It changes the idea and unveils the different kinds of things and spots and your inner unconscious things. That's why the shadow is it's very powerful, I think. It has many, a lot of, how can I say, meanings.
Yeah. And Shunxiang, when you came to Berlin for the first time last winter to work, it was this dark winter, not a lot of light as you have in Chengdu, because in Chengdu, even in the summertime, you have a blue sky. Okay, so this was this Berlin atmosphere around you, and her work is totally very perspective. So when you see it, so you are inside this environment, and you get a bit absent from the noisy environment, from outdoor and something like this. So she has really something very introspective in her work. But was this period in Berlin, this dark period, this experience of this shadow around you, a big influence in your new works?
Yeah, I really like the title of our exhibition, Under Shadows. For me, there are two different meanings. One side is about reality, what I'm feeling familiar. Another is I'm unfamiliar. The current situation is about my Euro life living in China. I said I was a second child, but maybe several 10 years ago, 30 years ago is not alone. So I always under a big pressure and unease. Another shadow is about 8 years ago, when the last time I went to Germany and met a terrorist attack in Düsseldorf. Yes, so the artist residency last year. Actually, it's the first time after that terrible thing. But because of the artist's residency, I can face the problem. I grew quickly and full of courage now.
Yeah, so this was a very bad experience. She was in Düsseldorf when there was this terror attack at the train station with her friend. So they were just inside the train station when it happened. So it was quite afraid. You know, and even they got lost from each other. She was a visitor, not know, okay, where should they go, what is happening. And then, after the invitation to come to Berlin for the residence program, organized by both galleries who support them, New Gallery and KORNFELD, then she really said, okay, I go back to Germany. So I will face again this country, I will give Germany a second chance.
Yeah.
Something like this. No, and we are very thankful so for her. We met at that time when she was here, so I could feel how it was really very tough for her to be here and be alone and be back in Germany after this one experience. So that's why also I call it the exhibition between both of them under shadows, because we've been talking a lot about these kinds of ghosts and situations that are around you and all these things. No? So it was really very, very good that you came back. And now, yes, and to share with us your experience and also your artwork out of this context. No? And then talking about art, talking about painting, talking about the creative ductus from the painting itself, wenn wir über Malerei sprechen. Ne? Zum Beispiel, wir kommen zurück, das ist meine letzte Runde von Fragen und dann öffnen wir, machen wir das jetzt ganz kurz. Zum Beispiel, Simin, deine expressive Figuration bezieht sich auf die, hat etwas von persischen Miniaturmalerei oder den deutschen Neoexpressionismus oder kommt das alles aus deinem mentalen Archiv? Ne? Und wie bewegst du dich innerhalb von diesem visuellen Mischung von Elementen, und auch von diesem Einfluss von einer Kunstschule und der Universität in Hamburg? Ne?
Persische Miniatur hatte keinen Einfluss auf mich und mein Arbeiten. Ich habe in Iran, als ich Studentin war, in Fachmalerei in Teheran, mein Thema war so über Frauen. Und dann im Laufe des Studiums, in Kursen oder mit Freunden so, haben wir recherchiert, wir waren Fans von deutscher Expressionismus und dann wir folgten diese Bilder und ich war sehr Fan. Und dann nach meine letzte Ausstellung in Teheran, das so ein Erlebnis hatte, dass ich durfte nicht einige Bilder zeigen. Dann habe ich gedacht, ich gehe Deutschkurs, ich lerne Deutsch und dann ich komme nach Deutschland und mit dem Ziel, dass ich gehe über deutsche Expressionismus mehr sehen und studieren und so. Aber das hat richtig Einfluss.
Ja, diese Sehnsucht, diese direkte Verbindung zu dieser Malerei, die tatsächlich deinem Konzept entspricht. Dann dachtest du, okay, ich mache nicht mehr mit dem System, ist nur mein Weg. Und ist der gelungen sozusagen. And Tamara, in your work, it's predominant by sculptures, huge scales, but you paint also a lot. and then you make the mix. For instance, the new series of objects that she's presenting at the KORNFELD Gallery, it's this mix. You had this in other works, dealing with paintings and objects and shadows and distance. How is it for you, the combination of these both medias?
It's for me the same, whatever I do, painting or sculpting. It's painting or sculpting, for me it is the same, whatever I do. But people tell me often that my paintings will be like sculptures. There's also maybe, but it comes itself, you know. For me it's one thing, it depends what is better to show this idea. If it's painting, I go to painting. If it's sculpting, I go to sculpting. It's one thing.
Thank you. And Shunxiang, for instance, your work, when we think, okay, we are presenting your work with one young artist who studied the art in China, painting in China, how this traditional Chinese painting influenced your work and the way of painting? And how do you see your work nowadays here in dialogue with a very international art scene? So bringing your background from Chinese traditional painting, art school to Berlin.
To be honest, I never think this similar question in China because never asked me this question. I think maybe because of different controls. Yeah. So. Because I was born and raised in China, so the Eastern way of seeing and thinking is just how I am. I think it's naturally. Yeah, but it's really a good question. Maybe behind all this explanation, I will think of this question deeply.
Thank you so much. It's all part of a big process for all of them. And also being here, and we always say, okay, after the exhibition is before the exhibition. So you make one exhibition and you start thinking how will your work develop and why the audience will react to this. You know? So my questions are done, they survived my questions, so well done.
Thank you.
But we still have a few minutes. They have to be at 4 o'clock at the other gallery for a guided tour. We still have a few minutes if someone has some questions to add to the artists. Huh? That's not...
I would have a question.
Yeah, please.
The artist, really, thank you very much. Too. I was very curious about what you were saying, that you have this connection to the representation of the body. And I would like to ask you if you could find out more, like, you were talking about emotional connection, also for vulnerability and the incompleteness of the body. But do you also find something maybe coming from different cultures, so to speak, finding something which is a transcultural interconnections between this representation of artists?
Is it for the three artists? Yes, okay, so again, okay, we can start with, get someone else translated. Okay, who should start? Who would start answering? Did you figure out?
Oh, sorry, okay, myself couldn't ask very well.
Martin was saying this about this emotional connection with Shunxiang when we were together and talking about
Yes, we
artists and
had, women coming from one comes from a big country, another comes from a big country, but politically in both countries hard situations. And the way we could talk, that's how I said there was this connection somewhere, not really like visible, but it was somewhere in the feelings. So the body, which she does, which she explained that somebody can see himself in her painting, and she's standing like behind, is very close to my approach as well. Because that's how I said, I don't know how it's for a viewer, but I think when there is the connection. It doesn't matter if it's the connection of the body or connection of the, to paint, for example, the nature. If there is a connection, it is, and it is, you will always feel it. You know, that's, but I think this is what I can say about our exhibition, which we did together, which is always very hard because each artist has its own thing, own way, and to combine the things and to do it's very settled, and you have to be careful. So I think her work also with the body was very impressive. You know, the way she does that. And in this exhibition, I did these shadow works, which are completely just the phantoms. And that's why I think this two things work. That's what was my feeling and perceiving techniques as well. And with the painting is a bit transfer. But with the sculpture, there's already. I don't know if I gave the answer which is clear, but I tried. Thank you. Can I also say something? Can I say thank you to everybody? Thank you to the gallery, thank you to artists, thank you to Tereza. Thanks a lot, thanks to everybody, to Freddy, and to everybody who works in the gallery. It's such a support. We really feel like we are at home. And it's a big thing, you know, coming here for me is always, I don't know, a big thing.
And during this process of preparation, also with Fred, we thought, okay, I wrote a text for this exhibition under shadow, but then we said, okay, the artists are here, okay, we have their works, but it's a unique opportunity to exchange and to give them one more voice, even if it's hard for them to speak or to verbalize what they feel. But it is really, das ist eine einmalige Chance, dann gemeinsam mit euch zu sein. Und deswegen finde ich das super wichtig und wir sind alle sehr dankbar, dass ihr dabei gewesen seid. Und wir sind noch hier unterwegs in beide Ausstellungen noch eine Weile und unsere Frage ist oder Gespräch, die Künstlerinnen sind da. Dann vielen Dank.